and welcome to another episode of Lighthouse Projector series with your hosts, Anita Keene and Juliette Stapleton. You see all the information here on screen about us, and check out show notes if you want to follow us. But let me just summarize again and remind you, if you have seen or listened to other episodes, the Lighthouse Projector series, we call it Human Design Conversations for All, because although both of us are projectors, Anita is an emotional projector, 5-1, I am a splenic projector, 1-3. We're here to guide you, but we want to have a very all-inclusive conversation every time, even when the conversation goes about a specific type. And today we are going to talk about projectors and something that is really specific to projector type. But if you're not a projector, don't tune out. In fact, tune in, because in every relationships, there's two people involved, at least, right? And so everybody is responsible for how this relationship will go. And therefore, being aware of what or how the other person is operating based on their design is actually invaluable awareness, invaluable skill to be able to determine, that, okay, I'm dealing with this odd creature here because, hey guys, projector is a diagnosis, right? It's not like the normal person, the operation of a projector. In fact, all non-energy types are a bit odd. Manifestors are definitely not what the world thinks we all should be, right? But that's because the world is 70% generators. And you guys also condition the rest of us, when we're in groups, into being generators too. So we kind of have this one way of being and conditioning and all these things. But then when we hone in on how do these projector guys work, and it's very, very different. And it's so different that, like, if you're a generator, you could be surprised the way we are. And I think it's all about how our auras are shaped, because we are talking about the mechanics of energy and interaction. This is no magic stuff, nothing. This is literally almost, it's not physical, it's metaphysical probably, but it's just the mechanics of how things interact, how they interject, and what happens when that interaction happens, energetic interactions between two people, what happens within both of them. It was very interesting. The inspiration for this episode actually happened with me posting on Facebook, and I had this little contemplation about my personal relationships that I'm building now with a generator guy. And I find myself hyperfixating to a point of exhaustion. I was married for 20 years before that. My husband passed away early in 2023. And this domain is a completely, in a way, new domain. I forgot how to build a relation. I forgot how to date. I forgot how we interact. And what became very, very obvious to me is that I don't have a healthy approach to this. So I started asking myself why. Of course, I looked at everything. I looked at how my brain operates. I have a suspicion of being an ADHD person. So there's fixation there, obviously from that side. There is inability to disconnect. There is the need for dopamine. There is a need for, and the dopamine that comes from connection to a very specific one. It's not like I just need to go and stimulate myself with something else. And it's like addiction. It really is like addiction. But then human design walks in, and Anita was the messenger from the human design point of view. And she messaged me and said, Juliette, I have this great idea for another episode of Lighthouse Projector series. And we should talk about this because this is something that is very typical for a projector. Because of our aura is shaped, imagine like an ice cream cone, we are laser focused on the other. In fact, the existential question for a projector is, who is the other? We are focused on the other. We are completely confused when it comes to ourselves, but we're so clear and we see within the other, but energetically we penetrate them. And so it creates this energetic cord. And Anita was saying, I would love to talk about this. I would love to talk about how can you separate from the other being a projector without a feeling that you have to, almost like black and white vision of things. You have to break up with the person. You have to cut everything and all connection because you're constantly connected with that person. And of course, guys, loads of things happen when we experience that kind of connection. You know, we started with the romance, and yes, love is in itself this magical way of connecting to each other, and, you know, almost responding to each other's feelings over distances. And there's a lot of magic that's happening. Not magic that it's not real, because it's absolutely real. But yes, there is that. But how do you detach? And some types, generator types, are so much better at that. So much better at that. Manifestor types, so much better. They don't even need anybody. You know, reflectors, they're designed in a way that they're not going to be bothered. They can connect, or maybe they reflect the connection. Like, I was married to a reflector for 3 years. We had lovely relationships. But was he as connected into me as I was into him? Or was he reflecting my connection? That's an interesting question too. You know, so we just wanted to talk about this. And Anita, maybe I will ask you, and I know you said that in the voice message that you left me that day when we planned this episode. I will remind you what I want to ask you. You said that some people, like 5-1s, projectors, and people with certain gates, are much more likely to kind of interject with another. So maybe we can talk about this. It applies to everyone, but there are sometimes, you know, people who are just more hooked up on others than others.
Absolutely. It's a complex subject, but if we start with the auras first, I remember when we were chatting, we were talking about the projector energy probing and the manifestor energy embracing, which both are very true. But what I kept on thinking was a temperature probe into a turkey to see how cooked it was, right? I just kept on thinking of that actual interjection for us, right? Or that actual, but truly, that is kind of what emotions move us to do at times. When we're moving away from someone, we immediately feel a fear that, oh my God, you know, oh my God. And we jump into fear interaction instead of the connection, the beautiful connection that we have with the other person. And when I say that, it's like, as you say, the separation and immediately feeling fear, as opposed to the separation and just regaining your own energy. Reconnecting with your own energy in the knowing that you're going to meet that person next week. Like, it's not the end of the world. But what you're telling your body and your brain is, oh my God, he's going, he's gone. It's, you know, and then
I just have to, I'm going to interject very quickly.
yeah.
Guys, one correction. I think, Anita, I think you just miss sort of, you said manifestor enveloping energy. It's the generator enveloping energy. Manifestors, they're like
Oh
dense,
yeah.
man.
Oh, sorry.
But that's what we were talking about, the generator versus projector connection. And what you described actually is so accurate. In my experience, this is exactly what happens. My guy leaves, the door closes, and I break. Like, I break, and he can go home and for a day or two feel absolutely happy that we had this connection, and he holds it, and he's just absolutely incredibly happy, and he doesn't need to be in touch with me necessarily in this time. And I am dead because I am all in this anxiety and fear, and I need to connect, and it feels like an addict, you know. My drug is gone. But this is exactly so I'm sorry that I interrupted you, but I just thought that maybe I need to validate and correct.
Absolutely. And that's the thing. Okay, the generator. But with us, what happens is with the fear, then we're enmeshing. Yes. And totally disconnecting rather than just reconnecting to yourself. And so as projectors, when we scan our connection instead of probe it, I think it's a healthier dynamic. So the generators, I think a lot of it can boil down to our definition. Single definition people are very good at stepping in and stepping out. You know, the profile, the 6 profile, the 5 profile are very good at stepping in and stepping out. I would say myself, when I'm there, I'm all there. When I'm out, I'm all out. I'm not even thinking about you. Like, you know, it seems unrealistic, but the single definition will. The split definition has more difficulty separating.
That's me.
Yeah, me too. We have more difficulty separating. And the 4th line in the profile, finds it difficult to separate because they're the bridge, though. If you knew how you're more healthily designed to connect, it really helps. The fourth line is the bridge. And the key there is staying connected in your own energy as you interact with others. So it's not losing yourself in it when you and then separating. But it's so easy because we're so driven by emotion in society that we forget that those natural connections of just being together without any, I just love being with you, you love being with me. We forget that that energy in itself is how two people create an energetic dynamic of love without interference of the emotion, right? There's no questions when you're with the person. It's when you separate. And so that's probably one of the biggest things is how are you designed to let go? Because very often, regardless of type, when we let go, we dive into our attachment issues.
Yes, that's it. That's
know,
it. You probably,
or
this is what in my YouTube search.
yeah.
Everything, this next thing that I went into, I was like, oh my God, I have an anxious attachment style, which I actually don't. I actually have a very, very healthy attachment style when I'm more sure about my relationships. But in the beginning, and with this thing that she said, Anita, I have a question for you because you mentioned something and I think we need to unpack this. You said, it's important that you scan the other person rather than probe them. So for me, this is unclear because so how can you practically, how does this look like, or what does it look like?
Okay, what does it look like? That's a brilliant question. I've been trying to work this out myself. Scanning the environment is scanning the person, because a projector can just walk into the room and read the room without anybody saying anything, right? We're energy managers. Actually, manifestors can do similar, and reflectors are just so let's stay focused in this. When you are with someone and you're appreciating them for who they are and what they want, and you're not interjecting or trying to fix or you're actually hearing what they're saying without trying to fix it. You're speaking without attachment. You're just chatting, without the emotional attachment of needing to fix, needing to heal, needing to be accepted, needing to be acknowledged. I know this sounds weird because when you don't need that, you can scan the room and just chat to the person for who they are, as opposed to all the attachments that come. I was talking to a girl the other day, or a woman the other day, and she was there, we got married and our relationship went to pot. And I was there, well, marriage has a lot of emotional and mental attachments and expectations that can ruin a relationship. So why don't you just be yourself and your, say, Mary and Pat, rather than marriage? Marriage is only a concept anyway. Like, it was already designed as a contractual reflection of your assets and power. That was what marriage was, a contract to strengthen assets and money and power. And so when we're scanning our environment, we're kind of taking it as it is.
I think
Rather
it's the
than,
hardest thing. You know
it
what
is.
resonated with me, especially when you started saying, you can do it without fixing. So you're the fifth line person, which means that the underlying, I don't know what your motivation, I don't remember what your motivation is in human design, but the fifth line color is guilt, right? It's the color of guilt, which is actually the being of service, and fixing is that energy. When you want to fix, you're very good at that. Anyone with the fifth line are good at that. But I think what happens here with these things we're trying to do, where the root of these things are, I think it's in your conscious line, shadow of your personality line. So I am a first line. And of course, for me, it's the security in relationships is what the triggers. So I am there with the person, and my issue is that they haven't told me enough, or haven't told me yet, that it's very secure and they love me. And, I am there. There's no black and white bottom line. And as long as there's no, because it's a fear of motivation, and as long as, first color, as long as there's no bottom line, I'm going to be anxious. And that was really big. So the second line, let's think about it as a hope, it's like things will figure themselves out. But as long as they're not figuring out, they're trying to get, is this a perfect person? They're just kind of like grabbing onto that person, looking for answers in them, within, and not within themselves. That's where the anxiety will come from, and the third line, am I good enough? Will they find out that I am not perfect? That's the big hookup. Oh my God, one day he will find out I'm not a Superman, not a Superwoman. And then there's the anxiety, or they expect me, their expectations, they expect me to be this or that. And I find that every third line person that I know have that hookup when 3 is the first line, especially in these kind of the hookup that creates this anxiety when the other leaves. What are we hooked up on? It's so hard. The fourth line you mentioned, what was it? Will they like me? Do they like me enough?
Yeah.
That's what the fourth line wants to be liked, and then the fifth line wants to fix, and the sixth line is perfection, probably as well. Are they perfect partner for me? Do they see me?
The sixth line can be, the 3 line for the first 30 years of its life. And then it moves into, so the 3 line is kind of, to me, bumping into life sometimes.
Oh, yes, totally.
Oh, yeah,
physically.
I'm here. So, and then kind of steps back and kind of goes, hang on, bumping into life kind of hurts. I don't really want to keep doing that. I want to be more discerning about how I move forward. But in relationship, the 6th line is always seeking a partner, always seeking a partner.
It's about the perfect partner, isn't it? It's perfect relationships, the perfection, the full harmony and balance, and evaluating that all the time. So unless you feel that this is perfect partnership, you're going to be anxious, you're going to be insecure. Absolutely. And the color of innocence, where again you're an observer. You're kind of in it, you're kind of doing it, but you have to have both. You have to be both, and stepping back, but you're not. You're kind of anxious. You're grabbing onto a person. And that's where the anxiety comes from. So it's very interesting to understand when your hyperfixation happens, specifically if you're a projector, also what it triggers. And I think that the profile lines give us a very good insight, at least at the first level. Of course, there's so many nuances.
Yeah. But the first thing we need to consider is how we actually process information. So our reticular activation system, literally, you think something. Our reticular activation system is our way of processing thoughts, and it kind of filters the thoughts so that all the information that's around the place doesn't overwhelm us, right? But so what it does, if you're thinking something, your reticular activation system scans your environment for more of it, to confirm it. Doesn't make it true, which is interesting because a lot of people think, I think it, so it's true. Not the case. No. So when you're afraid, you can be sitting on the couch thinking about something, and your body thinks there's a bear in front of you when you're anxious. Your body thinks you're in mortal danger. And so you're creating all these chemicals that seem to confirm that the fear is true. So, but it's really just that your thought is activating your brain to create those chemicals. So when we leave someone and we think about them, it's so easy to hyperfixate, because we're constantly seeing evidence they're not there. They're not there. Where am I going to see them again? They're not there, right? So it builds up anxiety in the body. What can be really, when you know that, you can actually step back and start breathing deeply and realign your system, potentially, dissolving any cords that you've set up through that meeting so that you can regain your integrity again, your autonomy again as a person. And there was another thing that I was good. So that's the first thing, regardless of type, regardless of the difficulties and struggles that we have. The second thing is I'm a relationship coach. I trained with Gay and Katie Hendricks and the Hendricks Institute. And they actually showed us how the energetic connections happen without words. So if you hug someone, if you're afraid of getting into a relationship, you might be physically hugging them, but your energy contracts inside. So you're not actually connecting, right? When you step back from someone, what happens to you? You can very easily see what your separation tendency is by just physically hugging someone. If you have to hug someone heart to heart for maybe, I think it's about 30 seconds, and you start feeling the connection, stepping
Yeah.
in, the love connection. And when you step back, do you contract? Do you stay expanded? Are you still with them? Are you, it's an experiment for us. We have learned such an enmeshed tribal. If you don't do this, if you do this, there's repercussions. If you don't do that, there's repercussions. You have to do it this way because this is how you fit in the tribe. So when we feel genuine love with people, it can scare the shit out of us, for want of it can really scare us. And that's normal.
Yes, I know, not easy, but it's really is a special thing. Actually, while you were talking, I know that we kind of jumped into the romantic relationship simply because that's what caused this whole thing. But I always make a connection because I know a lot of people who are listening. This is not we're not relationships coaches who are active coaches, right? We are talking about visibility, money, prosperity. So how does this apply to business and marketing? And the truth is that we develop very similar relationships with our clients, with our potential clients. We do get really connected, especially on Zoom calls. I don't know about you, Anita, but I know I connect energetically so deeply with people on the calls that when I am with a manifesting generator type, especially pure generator type, I find that this energy it lingers, it stays with me. The cord is so strong. If obviously if I really like the person, then it's one thing. But I mean, I'm not talking about clients, but when you're with someone who can be a bit heavy, and then
Mhm,
you take that home, that
yeah,
takes over your life. That takes
yeah.
over for me, I had a client who was a pure generator, who wasn't a perfect client, lovely person, but just not a perfect, correct client or person for me. And I had to cancel everything. If I had a call with this client, I had to keep my day open, which means no extra income, because you can't take energetically anyone, you can't talk to anyone, you're cooked at the end of that because you're taking this home. So you mentioned something about cutting cords. Do you have
Mhm.
any practical tips or something how to do that? Because what happens is that we talk a lot about cutting cords, but how, we're not just explaining. And I really would love to have these are the greatest tools to have,
Yeah.
simple techniques.
It really is. It is really cool because you can be just as attached. Like we have relationships with everything. So you can be just as attached to a place or to money or to a
Yeah.
job as you can be to a person, right? It's how are you, I think the key is how are you designed to connect with someone and how are you designed to step back into your space?
Yes.
Can you do it without dragging all their energy with you? Now, when we say push pull energetically, we're actually energetically pushing someone away. You'll know it with the manifester.
Yeah.
Is a good example. When you tell them what to do, they hate it. So, you tell them, you feel immediate resistance, right? But when there's beautiful exercises that I use, especially as a projector, because it's so easy to jump in, is the cord cutting. When you put your feet on the ground, you can literally take a few deep breaths into your belly and just literally say very simply, I'm sending all their energy back to them with love or under grace, and I'm reclaiming all my energy home. And click your fingers. You're intentionally saying, off you go, good luck, see you next week, and intentionally stepping back into your own space. It's a beautiful exercise. Sometimes I use the angels because it can be difficult. As you said, the 2 and the 5 line profile can set up a karmic connection with people that can be very sticky. When I say sticky, emotionally driven rather than the natural connection. So sometimes I use the angels or Archangel Michael to say, help me cut the cords here because I'm finding it difficult to step back. And help me to step back in a way that I'm not terrified, that I don't go into all my anxieties about reconnecting again. So we're literally consciously instructing our mind to say, it's okay, there's no bear, and we don't have to be in fear when we're not with someone, and we can relearn learn how to be with someone and not get lost with someone. So it's very simple. Even leaving a place, when I leave Glenbeigh, I love it. It's my favorite place on the planet. And I actually cut the cords and I actually say goodbye. You know, a lot of people say, oh, I don't say goodbye. I always say au revoir or good luck. Or what happens is we're not completing them. So we're dragging all this energy with us. We're dragging it around. And that's the weight. Wanting to fix someone is the weight. Wanting to be with someone is the weight that connects us to them. So when we can just hand it back, I'm giving back all my energy back to those who have drawn from me, and I take back mine. It's just magical. Like you can even feel the energy of that. It's a very gentle, very simple way. But what we're also doing is saying to the body, you can calm down. It's not the end of the world that I'm walking away now. Because what can happen, as you know, with any relationship, even with work, I can't leave because.
Oh,
What?
yes. Oh, with your business, running your business, checking out, checking social media all the time. This kind of type of overfixation still have to do with people. It still
Yeah,
have to do with others,
yeah.
I had, when my personal relationships was at, it's steady. I was married and, there was love and everything. I didn't need to worry about it. It was always people I worked for. It was always my boss. There was always drama and anxiety and all these things because you can't come home and just detach from work and rest and recharge. And yet I know personally people who, like say a lot of people, generator types now, they can take time off. They can block things off. They can just zombie it out, as some of them say. And after that, they get back to okay, and then they get back to normal. Whereas for me, it's either, it's black and white. You cut and you run and you never see them again. And maybe in 20, 30 years, I will recover. And that's an
I know.
experience I had. I had people I was hooked up for 20, 30 years. They were still at the back, and the only way is never to see them again. But that's not doable, guys. That's not the truth. And actually, I have used exercises for cutting the cords. Here's my, if I may share, when you're hooked up on someone that is a really, really strong connection like this, it requires a lot of deep inner work. You have to understand why you're hooked up. You have to understand it could be because of your energetic cord. It could be that energetic cord is also connected to the way your brain works. This is where, for me, to realize that there might be a possibility that I have ADHD. It was an eye-opening, life-changing experience. I do not need anyone to come in and say, yes, you have, or no, you don't, because I know that I do. And the way it shows is that there's such a fixation on someone that this is the only way to get a certain feeling, the being with that person or connecting to that person or talking, I don't know, in any way. So it's a very specific drug, yeah? And so your brain gets hooked up on that. So understanding that is very important. But with the smaller, what happens with the exercise, and I did what you suggested, and successfully actually. And the reason why I started saying that, deeper work is required, because you can try something like this and it doesn't work, and you're like, it doesn't work. It does. It does, but it's like a muscle. If you have never done it and you don't believe in it, believe is an intention. If you don't actually intend when you are cutting cord or any tool you want, any technique, Anita's is only one off. You can Google many, many other ways, right? There's so many other ways. Whichever appeals to you is the right way for you. But you have to practice. Like with everything, right? It's like in human design. You have to practice following your strategy and authority. Sometimes you will, sometimes you won't. Even over the years, you'll never be perfect. Humans are not perfect. You have to practice. Sometimes it's better, sometimes it's worse. But when you do it, first of all, you will find your grounding when you practice this. You will know that, okay, we're separating. Either it's the client that does your head in or takes you energetically, takes over you, a person in maybe love relationships, anything. Start doing it and don't expect miracles straight away. That's such key. And this is my heartfelt advice, because when you start practicing it, after a few times, you will start noticing that this is making a difference. It might not make a difference from the first time. I just felt compelled now to say it, because these kind of things, sometimes we try and, the lightning bolt didn't strike and so it doesn't work, but it really is powerful. It really is powerful to send the energy back to found grounding within yourself, whichever way you come to that. That has to be the goal. Trust me, when you set yourself a goal to discover how you can ground yourself, the information, the techniques, the methods will come into your life pretty quickly. Like, we manifest so quickly the moment we start really truly intending to get somewhere, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think that this is really important, and for everyone it's important, because it's not just, okay, we are projectors, we have this, we only learn about ourselves through the other. The
Yeah.
other in our life is important. We cannot exist without the other in our lives. That's how we are designed to operate. It's through the other everything happens. But a generator doesn't need the other. They're lovely, they're group creatures. They, of course, they are creators. They need to mate, they need to create. So yeah, they're this kind of like a constantly dividing cell creature. But they can be on their own, and they can
Yeah.
be happy on their own. Complete
Yeah.
contentment, which
That's true.
with all the resting that projectors need to do, it's never complete contentment for me personally, unless
Mhm.
I'm with the correct person, one on
Yeah.
one.
That's a very good point. And I want to pull out there something that you said about the fixation. Remember, we interact. I remember watching a podcast with you and Robin Wynn. We interact via our profile all the time, that we consistently do that. What I keep saying to people is that when you're in fear, focus becomes fixation. When you're in physiological
Yes.
fear, focus becomes fixation. The other side of fixation is zoning out altogether, right? But the middle ground, when we're in balance, our superpower, which is focus, becomes our superpower. We can focus on something instead of being attached to it. So when we're in fear, which is emotion driven, right, amygdala driven, now we're fixated. We're either
Yes.
fixated because we're fighting with someone or because we're, so that's one thing that we need to remember, that this is within our control too. That we can say, oh, I'm fixated, I need to back off. Because I know people, and I've been there myself, who even with work, even the thought of stepping back from my desk and going out and doing something fun, I used to find it actually hard to do because
Yes.
we used stress as our main motivator. So if I'm not working, who am I? Oh my God, what do I do? I'm not. You see people who retire that lose it because they don't know who they are without the other. And this is where human design really comes in. We do know who we are with the other. We can choose our relationships now. We don't have to bump into them. We can choose them. It's a very intentional, as you said, right? The other thing that I would say is with the generators, they need someone to bring their energy to the throat also. Manifesting generators have a little bit, sometimes the generator, and this is why the projector generator relationship can be so powerful, because it's a beautiful symbiosis of two types, that I have the idea, says the projector, and I have the energy, says the generator. And, let's share. It can be just a superb interaction. And you're right. I just wanted to make that clear, because sometimes we act in relationships that the fear with the relationship is that if I don't have the other, I'm nothing. And I just want to point that out. That's not the case. We're amazing human beings in our own right. And when we chill out about it, we start to meet people. So great example, just to
It's very good. One thing you just said there about that we're bringing energy to the throat, guys. Some generators do have defined throat centers. Like I am dating one, but there might be energy split. So it's not like a single split, right? And the energy is not coming from the motor center. That's what makes them generators, are not manifesting generators. So yes, but what I find as well with especially with projector and generator connection, there is a lot of complementary energy, but there's this guidance that just shows. The projector can see if the generator is open to them, the projector can see within, and the actual interaction with the correct people is fantastic. And I think that this is why it's so difficult as well. It's like addiction. You see so clearly in the other. The generator doesn't need to speak, because their body does the speaking. They just have to sigh or just mumble something, or just grunts, and you're like, okay, your body just told me everything I need to know, so you validated everything I need to know. But the moment you leave, this connection that I have, like I am now have no other to see into. And yes, you're right, but I really love it. And I think I already kind of went talking about this, but the whole fear, understanding what specific angle of fear you have. Human design profile lines, personality profile lines, look into the shadows, look where it's in the not self. That will give you so many clues. The way I personally use that to ground myself is that I try and find, okay, so what's going on here? Why am I feeling this fear? Because what you, Anita, said, it's exactly the truth. The body doesn't know you don't have an immediate threat like an angry bear in front of you. The brain is actually stupid enough not to make a difference between some hypothetical thought and the real danger. It makes your body react exactly the same. So you're going into spasms, you're going into, feeling out of breath, and it's insane. And then you think, where does this come from? So you are again coming back to relying on your thoughts, and thoughts are liars. Thoughts are liars. I have a chapter in my book called "Cockroaches in Your Head," a common Russian saying. This is very common. This, what they call annoying negative thoughts. I think Dr. Daniel Amen, in his book Change Your Brain, Change Your Life, he talks about annoying negative thoughts. When I read that chapter, and I already published my book by then, I was like, my God, this is it. We have these things, but these are the thoughts. We are the awareness behind. We have to have the awareness behind the thoughts. The thoughts is your mind. And in human design, it's very simple how it's explained. So our mind gets hooked up on the conditioning, fixated on our condition, on our shadows, and then tries to explain it some logical way and sabotage us, instead of for us to be in our bodies and to, operate with a natural way. The mind is there and it's loud and it takes over. And so this whole process of deconditioning is in a way a process of being aware that your thoughts are liars. Your thoughts are not you. Your thoughts are not self. You cannot trust them. One of the exercises that I have found, and I am doing now, guys, every time I have anxiety, if I wake up with anxiety, and there's a lot of it, as I mentioned, because I feel like a teenager has no clue in relationships, but I do that with clients. I do that with work. Now, I bought myself a completely new copy book, and I write down my negative thoughts, and then I evaluate them. I evaluate them on two levels, and this is very effective. One level is that I ask myself, I do the Katie Byron or Byron Katie exercise, where I say, is this truth? Is this the ultimate truth? What would you be if this thoughts, or if this wasn't there? And what does it make you? This asking these questions. Now, I am not a follower, and I don't do it religiously. I probably do my own version of it. I might have said the questions wrong, but this helped me, because what literally you're doing is you are questioning if the validity of your thought. But also you can say you're worried, will this client sign up? And your brain is like, no, because of this, or they don't appreciate you. They don't, or, with your loved one, why are they not reaching out? What's happening? Writing down all these theories that the brain is feeding you in this copy, and then listening to your authority. I know not every one of us, if you're a mental projector, maybe that's not going to really work for you. But for me as a splenic projector, it really does work. For a generator, it really would work. Write this down and see what your authority says when you're looking at this, every one of them. And my authority, my spleen, always says a very quiet yes on those things that are usually very like, no, he's just asleep, went to bed early, that's why I didn't message. This is the kind of stuff. But the brain will give you all the ideas, and very self-defeating, like, there's no respect for you, there's no love, always these things. So this writing down your negative thoughts, sometimes we're afraid what's going to come out, but it's a really great exercise, because you're taking that out of your mind and you're making it tangible, and tangible you can address. You can then, in a way, it's like from from a big imaginary dragon, it just turns into some sort of little bug that you can easily squash if you wanted to. I know it was a cruel example, but let's just pretend that it wasn't cruel at all, because you have to get rid of that thought, right? If it's an ant or a cockroach,
Yeah, yeah.
no.
Exactly. Well, that's part of what that's a great exercise, by the way, and writing it down. Or if you are a mental projector, speak to someone. If you have a defined head and asana, speak to someone and ask them to speak it, reflect it back to you. Because sometimes the story in our head is way bigger than
Oh,
than
it's
when we
always way
actually play it
bigger.
out.
That's
Yeah,
what we
when
need
we
to
play.
remember.
Exactly.
One more thing I want to add. Think about, so if you're a triple split, triple split, Anita, it will be even harder for you. So it's not like splits are not all the same. The way we are connecting is not all the same. So I'm a small split or basic split, what they call it. So I would be hooked up on one other person. It's very one-on-one. With the triple split, there is more. It's not necessarily this kind of like a duality involved. There is more to it. You need to split all the, you need to bridge all the splits, and then this energy will flow better. And and especially if you're with someone who maybe you have the single definition, then the clarity will come. It will become so much clearer instantly. I see that in action because I have a friend who is a triple split. When we're together, the clarity in his mind, it's like everything is clear and easy. The moment we're separate, everything is overthinking again.
Exactly. That's really great to add, because the open head and ajna overthinks because it wants to be certain. The defined head and ajna is going all the time anyway. So I have some fab exercises that I had to learn, because with the defined head and ajna, we learn, we're designed to be certain. But what I found is that if what I've learned to be certain about isn't true for me, it can still snag up my energy, right? So the first thing, just to know that your mind works regardless of type. Your mind will process information in its own unique way, based on the gates that are activated, whether it's defined, whether it's open. And so knowing that, you can now kind of say, oh, when I'm fixated on something, it's for really good reason. It's because I'm trying to grasp for an answer, or, I know what I do when I'm out of balance or when I'm in fear. So that what I've said to people now is, hang on a second, defined head and ajna, ask the question, is that even true? As you just said. With the open head and ajna, I would say the question is that even mine? It
Yes, I,
might
I
be
agree. I agree.
someone else's thought that you're processing and that it's snagging up your system. And that's how the energies get funny and enmeshed or whatever. And what I started doing recently, which is really interesting, is I found that I've been drawn, and you'll be drawn to the different techniques that are perfect for you. So when, after listening to this, you'll say, I wonder what would be the best way for me to calm my thoughts. And you'll find either you'll hear it here, or you'll Google internet and suddenly it'll show up for you, or someone will ring you and say, it'll start the ball rolling for that perfect system to come to you. But I've started using the wonder method, which was derived by Alan Harriet, which is literally just sitting back and just going, okay, I'm overthinking again. I know I'm overthinking, right? So sit back, taking a few breaths and just asking the question, I wonder what this energy in my body might be about without needing to know the answer. I'm taking off trying to put meaning on it. I'm taking off the pressure of needing to fix, needing to find meaning, needing to work it out, figure it out. The story that's keeping me snagged, because remember, it's what I'm thinking about is creating this confusion in my body. So I wonder if I just dropped a story, if I just literally mentally, emotionally, and energetically dropped it on the ground and said, okay, and acknowledge the emotion that you're feeling. It's acknowledge the sensations in your body, because what can happen is the story is actually keeping it in place.
That's
The
true.
mind is keeping it in place. So when you step back and go, I wonder what this is about without needing to know the answer, you're acknowledging these feelings. instead of fighting them, resisting them, trying to get rid of them. So the more we try to do that, the more we resist, the more we persist. The more we try to stop something, the more it persists. So
Oh,
it's
that's true. That is
it's
true.
really, yeah.
Because you're pushing, you're like holding that door, like in Games of Thrones, you're holding the door. You're not actually addressing the issue. You're not, all you're doing is you exerting effort in order to push it away. And that can just lead you to a burnout. And yes, just sitting with it is such a much better way. For me, journaling, talking at, I think projectors, actually, let's just bring it back into like a human design type. In my observation, all projectors, not just mental projectors, benefit with processing things out loud, talking out loud. It definitely makes a lot of clarity when I don't have anyone to talk at. I journal, but really, I was just saying to my daughter this morning, bring on 2040 or whenever it is, because I want to be retired with my own robot. I will talk at it, and it doesn't, it can smile and say pleasantries back and whatever. I just want to have, this is my idea for my retirement, because somebody has to listen to me, for someone has to listen to me. So I process things, because I have to talk about one thing about 10 times in order for my brain to process it. It could have to do with my basic split, because we're guys a bit slower. We're a bit slower to get things, or maybe it's the third line that needs
That's
multiple
a
times to go
really,
through the pain to get, to
yeah.
know how not to feel the pain.
That's a really good point, because with the split, I have a triple split, as you know. So my head and ajna are defined, my G center to throat is defined, and my will, solar plexus, and root is defined. I like to talk it out, I like to feel it out, and I like to act it out. I have three different things going, so you can imagine that can be a problem, because if head is going one way, heart is going another. But with the split, what I found is it takes us longer, because we naturally intuit that the dots aren't joining up. It's not complete. There's something missing there that we feel. So when we're in balance, we're super at looking at something and going, oh, that doesn't add up. Let's just connect here, connect the dots. When we're out of balance, we feel, oh my God, there's something missing. It must be me. The other person is going to fill it for me. Oh my God, what am I going to do? I'm not enough. I need to do something more to be liked, or whether whatever type you are, if you have a split, that's how you'll feel when you're anxious or in fear, or stressed. And what's happened is we've kind of no more let than with the thoughts, we've made them true. With those feelings, we've made them true also. Oh, I feel this way, it must be true. I kind of there, no, it's
Yes,
the
it's
thought
true.
generating those sensations in your body again. That's all. No more meaning, no more meaning. That's why the wonder method can be so cool. So, but it's just, but you're right. It's like learning. Stop diving down the rabbit hole of how it feels. It drives me nuts, actually. I did train to be a therapist, and please, therapy is fantastic, because there's definitely that talk aspect required. So I want to make sure that I'm not negating it. I found it fabulous. But I also found that how does this feel is very confusing to an open solar plexus person, because that might not be their emotion. People search for emotions instead of, oh, my heart is closed, or my heart is seizing up, or I'm feeling this stabbing pain in my liver area. It's really, so how does this feel? 50% of the population can't respond to that.
I have a completely open emotional center, and
How
I
do you
have
find it?
no
Does
clue.
that?
Emotions are aliens, even on the days when there's transits. And because I have a 35, so the 36 gets activated on the solar plexus, and then I go through this, this collective wave, like expectations crash, expectations crash. And it's really doing my head in, because I honestly have to say I do not understand emotions. And emotions, like thoughts, are liars, because it all depends. It's a wave, it's like, it's not real feeling. So when we're talking about feelings, we have to also like separate. So emotions is something that you experience. When we're talking about feelings as well, how it feels in your body is one feeling, definition of feelings, right? But also like a feeling for another person where there is connection, and this is a different thing. But we mix all this we jumble all this together, and then we get really confused about what's what, and to really understand that emotions, this is probably something that brought me into watching transits every day. I'm not, obsessed with that. I'm doing it again, this is a vitamin versus painkiller. This is my pain. I am going to see what transit is bringing because I'm in pain. I feel moody, I feel, and this is an alien for a non-emotional creature like me. It's a kind of alien energy, but it takes over me because I have an open center, so it's like a sponge. It takes it all in, so how can it be more of a filter? I interviewed once Shani Wood on my Visibility by Design podcast, and she's a manifestor. She's an emotional manifestor, and she was talking about this: be a filter, not a sponge. But we end up being sponges, emotionally. If you're open, we end up being sponges. And here, if you don't have certainty or, inspiration, everything comes out and just gets stuck there,
Well,
and
that's
we
really,
buy into it.
yeah, that's really true. And the same principle will work with the emotions as it does with the mind. Is that my thought? The open emotion is that mine? Is that my emotion? Is that even mine? Because be a filter, not a sponge. I've heard that and I'm there, yeah, that sounds fab, like, but how do you do it? So,
Yes.
you could also say with, like we said earlier, I'm giving back all these emotions back to that person. Because the emotional open person is very balanced. When someone is having a conniption or a blowout, the emotional person or the person who's open emotionally can be really stable and supportive there. When they know the emotion isn't theirs, it's very easy. To me, I see the open emotion as the potential rock in the storm. Not even the rescuer, but they can be the eye of the needle or the eye of the storm, where they kind of say, yeah, I see that, I acknowledge that you're really upset about this. Be upset, without taking it personally, without needing. That's how we can filter and not absorb it, right? Not take it in. We've been so used to, oh, I need to carry this. This started when we were kids, by the way, in
Yeah.
relationships. If our parents were upset or angry, we would try to take the energy to try to make them feel better. The kids only want the parents to feel better. But then what do we do with that?
I
We were,
think one important thing is, and again, this brings to everybody. We are also resorting a lot to black and white thinking. So it's not that you can be with somebody who is an emotional or affected by emotions, and you can't sometimes not take it in immediately, so not seeing it that it's never going to happen, or how do you train yourself that you just don't? No, you will, but you recognize that you're doing this.
yeah.
It's all about awareness. So when the moment you recognize, even if you initially reacted, that's also okay. We're humans. you
Mhm.
can you can pull back, you can correct. I think this whole thing, and this is perfectionism, guys, at its core. We're like, oh my god, if I reacted, then that's it, I am now affected, and then you are on that roller coaster. I don't like roller coasters. I do not
Mhm.
like them. But it
Mhm.
gives me this impression as if, the moment you kind of gave up, and then you're like in that cart, and cart goes down, you have no control. But you have the chance to get out. That was a stop there where you could get out and say, okay, I'm just gonna watch you guys doing your stuff there. And I'm thinking, you crazy, don't want to be that, but I'll be there waving at you in support, and that's what you want if you have this
It is,
ability.
yeah, and it's something that you can train to do. I notice myself with open emotion and defined emotion. Defined emotion actually have quite a solid way of processing their emotions. And once you know what that is, like, it's very empowering, because you can say, oh, I'm just on a low on my wave, or, oh, that person has broken an agreement. Yes, I'm flipping. That's what I do, right? But with the open emotion as well, you have a process of shifting emotions. And when you don't know what that is, it can be really devastating to a relationship,
That's
because
true.
what I notice with the open emotion, because I have a couple of them here in my house, is that they might pick up energy, the emotional energy from work, and they come to me and they innately know it's not their emotion, so they're trying to dump it somewhere. So they potentially try to poke me into an argument so that I can process the emotion for them, as opposed to recognizing, as you said, it's not that you won't ever feel emotions. Of course we'll feel emotions, But it's that when you know that, you can actually say, oh, hang on, is this emotion even mine? Okay, I don't want to tarnish, I don't want to upset my relationship with someone else's crap, basically. So I need to learn a way of releasing that so that I can step back into. Very, very brilliant example of this is stress and work. Stress is fear and anger driven. Fear and anger are the emotions around stress, fight or flight. And you bring it home, and suddenly everything at home also looks like a threat. So
Yes.
you're giving out to people and you're setting up an environment that is toxic in your home. That if you only knew and understood that actually, I'm just stressed. I need to use my trip from home or from work to home to deregulate or clear these emotions so that I'm not bringing it home with me. It's
Is
really
is there any tools or techniques? Because I love that we're saying this, but I just want to give our listeners and viewers like practicals. Do you know of any tools? Because again, we're like, okay, I need to do that, but how, I don't know. And then it goes into one ear, comes out of the other. So we need to give them the painkiller that or
absolutely the
that they need.
painkiller for this one is brilliant. I call it it's emotional freedom technique. It's tapping. It's like acupuncture without the needles. It gets to the pressure points that allow you to release emotional energy for the day. So literally you could even just start tapping here. There's a number of tapping. Google it, like it's everywhere. It's all over the internet. So you can just start tapping and literally talking about the problem or the issue that happened in work that you're emotional about. Or the person that was emotional, they came to you, they walked out the door feeling fantastic, and you're suddenly sitting there worried about their situation, right? That's how you know, naturally, how you know you've picked it up. So you just tap all this energy, all this emotional energy that I've picked up today. I completely, profoundly accept myself as I release it now. And you feel the energy going away. You just feel it shifting. And if you don't, go find someone who can help you with it.
Actually, yes, I was just going to say I am one person that a lot of people in my life are people who are into tapping. A lot of very close people, a lot of guides that I follow, a lot of people who help me even energetically. Everybody is into tapping. I can't tap. It's not my thing. And I already gave up now trying because I just know it just doesn't call me. But I've discovered that there's some visual guided meditations, visualizations with breathing, usually breathing involved, and then some sort of visualization that somehow is so much more powerful, and they calm me down and they allow me to have even small ones. Sometimes you can have a longer one if you really need a total reset, or you can have a shorter ones. I follow Elizabeth Peru. She is a cosmic guide based in Australia, absolutely amazing. I believe she's my cosmic guide on earth, really. For the last 10 years I follow her daily tip off, and she has a huge library of visualizations, meditations that she guides you through. She is excellent. She has a lot of stuff on Facebook. I am now like being like Elizabeth Peru. I need to show her this video and tell her, hey Elizabeth, do something for me there. No, actually, no, she's already have done a lot. But what I'm saying is that you can find, like, I found my thing that works, a person who gives me, or maybe like a library or certain tool that works for me. So when I am in that pain, there's a couple of things that I already do even without listening to a meditation, because sometimes like you just need to remember these things. They might be things that you don't need to speak. They might be things that you can do very discreetly, because even tapping can be, we all so conscious about what's going on in our environment. So you have to find what works for you, but there are things that work for you. And so I just mentioned Elizabeth Peru. Go to her Facebook page. She does a lot of videos when she talks about the cosmic energies. If her voice appeals to you, please go and check out her meditations. She's absolutely brilliant. So that's something that works for me, as long as well as the journaling and taking things out of my
Yeah.
head,
That's a
and
really
grounding.
good, yeah, that's a really good point. I remember running a stress management program for corporate at one point, and it had to be quick, easy solutions that were so simple, done in minutes. And yeah, it's understanding different people's learning styles. You'll find the one for you. I did a mind, I did body, I did emotion, I did energy, and it's all part of it. But one of the key things that I think is important to mention here is that the more you look after yourself and manage your balance, your health, your well-being, I have a daily practice to do this. The more you do that and know what your baseline is, the much easier it is to determine what's coming at you, to you, for you with relationships, so that you can much more easily discern. It's when you're all cluttered up yourself and your fears and your anxieties that you can't tell we would say in Ireland, your arse from your elbow, but you can't tell you don't know which end is up. So when you start taking responsibility for a daily habitual pattern that allows you to stay balanced, you really can really be quickly tuned in. Oh, that's not mine. Oh, that is. And you start playing with your relationships, playing with life instead of being a victim of life.
I love this. And we're recording this 2024 just started. 2024 is number 8 in numerology. It's the 8th universal year. And it's an energy of balance. It's also an energy of success and entrepreneurship, but only if you stay in balance. And what is it to stay in balance? It's not to overdo. So when you're, over fixated on someone, whether it's work, whether it's personal relationships, whether it's clients, whether it's how much engagement did your post get, whether it's, you have this launch that's coming up. It always involves other people. That's why your anxiety is so high up. The moment you are too hyper fixated on that, you're out of balance.
Yeah.
You have to balance. And also, it involves more than just that. You have to make sure that have you eaten well? One of the things that I noticed where my projector fixation on the other suffers more is when my wellness is compromised. When I'm so, in my zone that I forgot to regularly eat that day and I only ate once, and the next day I'm going to suffer. Same with my daughter, we notice this pattern. The next day I'm going to suffer because my anxiety will kick in double. My body is now running on fumes. So are you exercising? Are you physically active? Are you looking after this other side? So you maybe are working on your emotions, releasing all that, but you are forgetting that there's also physical. So the balance is so important. And I find, and maybe it's because my life's number is 8 as well. So this is kind of applies to my life generally. And I see that, and I go into extremes. But the moment you go out of balance, you're going really out of balance. It's not like a tiny little thing. You're literally there grabbing on, to stay on that for your life or you're dead. And that's what happens. And you just don't want, this is a painful area. This is where the only person that will hurt will be you. One thing that you mentioned, and I think that maybe that's what we should wrap this episode up on, is the point of neutrality. The point of neutrality, you said baseline, find your baseline, find where are you neutral? Because what I find is that we are all geared, and maybe it's a conditioning of some form, we're geared to be aligned, in quote marks, like aligned, right? And we feel like alignment is some sort of ecstasy. It's some sort of like, I am super happy right now. I am all this, but that's not what alignment really is. I think the alignment is actually the point of neutrality. This word keeps coming into my life ever since my husband was sick last year, and we, my daughter always said to me, Mom, neutral, no like extreme sadness and this is the end, or oh my god, there's still hope. You have to, that's the only way to approach it. That's the alignment, because then from that point of neutrality you get clarity. And from the point of clarity, then everything is much more in your control. You are then becoming a filter, not a sponge. You are then able to say, okay, hang on a second, this is not mine. If you're not in a neutral position, you do not know, see, or can even get whether the question is yours, whether the emotion is yours. You just can't. You're too involved. You're too invested. So this is where I find, and then you don't attach meanings when you are neutral. You don't attach meanings, because you know what? Not everything means anything. Not everything means anything at all, in fact, but we want it to mean something. So when you train yourself, and again, it's a muscle, and you will suck at it in the beginning, and it's going to be very difficult, and you will constantly try and attach meanings. But if you intentionally practice this over time, it becomes easier to go back to that baseline, which really is the point of neutrality. And from that point, it's much easier to cut that cord. And even as a projector who always needs to be connected to that other person, or some specific people, when you're neutral, then you're balanced. And last time when we recorded, we were used to the analogy with a cat. You know, you get back to your catness. You know, projectors are cats, and that's what cats are. They're kind of like, they're neutral. They're like, I'm not engaging in this drama. Well, sometimes they do,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
then they go back. They go back, and when they do, they lose their dignity. You can see it. You know, they turn into some crazy creatures. But it's not where that's not where the main catness is, right? So, and I think that this was very, very important for us. No matter what you are. Actually, there's something else comes in when I started introducing this episode, and I said, tune in if you're not a projector, because it's not just about a projector. And I was right. We were talking about a lot of things that maybe are not necessarily human design related. So maybe you didn't learn something, like we didn't teach you, although I think we said so many, we made so many connections with human design. But it's also to understand, if you're a generator type or a manifestor or any other type, not projector, be kind to your projectors, guys, because this is how we operate. We are meant to lock into others. In our relationships, we lock in with others. This is a natural thing. So when we're talking about cutting cords and everything, this is all about, gosh, how can I cope with this? This is my life. This is the story of my life. I have very little energy, and all that energy is focused on you, and I have no control over this. It's not that I can't just go home and be happy like you are. I can't. It's just not going to happen. This is in my nature to be locked on you. So be kind to me and allow me to then deal with myself, you know, try and cut cords, journal, whatever I'm doing. But be kind. Don't blame me for that. Don't reject me. Don't project at me just because I'm like this. And don't get overwhelmed with me. You know, it's just happens. I think it's important, and this is the message for every other type, especially generator types, that when you're aware how another person is designed, you can be kinder to them. Same with us projectors. When we're aware that generators can actually retreat, and they need to be alone and they need to recharge, and there is no need for you to be going there all the time poking at them. In fact, that's where they're going to push you away, because you're not giving them a chance to recharge. When you understand that their existence is about being satisfied within themselves, then you never will say, oh, you're selfish. You never will think even in that direction. You'll kindly allow them to be, you know. And this is what I think, this is the mission of us creating these conversations, is that we can be more compassionate to each other, whether it's business, marketing, you know, compassionate to ourselves, of course, and appreciating ourselves, but to each other as well, because we're aware how uniquely we are all designed and how this shows up in the way we are showing up.
Absolutely. I agree. I think human design gives us the freedom to know how our energy works so that we can establish needs and stop feeding this stupid relationship ideal in society that is messed up. Let's face it, there's more divorces than there are connections, right? And our kids are really struggling with relationships. So remember, when you know how you work, you can express those needs, those non-negotiable needs sometimes, to others. And it's much easier for the other to accept then, because we're dealing with you and me. We're not dealing with some set of terms and conditions that we should be adhering to. We're dealing with you and me. And oh my God, I'm just so excited at what this means for relationships moving forward, understanding how your energy works, because the energy impacts everything. And when you have too much energy, that's the fixated. When you have too little, you don't even think anything, you know, you zone out. And it's just recognizing there are two sides of the same coin, which is focus is great, fixated can be great if it's on the right thing, but if it's on the
balance.
yeah, exactly.
Stay in balance. Yeah,
Exactly.
always bring yourself to balance, to that neutral point where you can have a bit of both, and it's healthy. And you know, you can be still invested in everything, but do it in a healthy way. Don't overdo it, and always have that. this is where, again, knowing who you're dealing with in human design is incredible. I joked with my late husband. I always said this saved my marriage, although it didn't. We had a great marriage, but the awareness, it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. So yes, guys, thank you so much for listening to us. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have your experiences, please, if there's comments below this video, share with us or reach out to us. Anita Kane, she's a money and prosperity coach. I am Juliette Stapleton, and online visibility strategist. You can see our information here on the screen, or you can reach us at anitaking.com and julietstapleton.com. Very simple. It's all very simple. And we will see you in another episode of Lighthouse Projector series, where hopefully we will dive in on another juicy topic to help you build that awareness and stay in balance. Thank you so much, and bye.